has kind of been for quite a few years, been my passion, providing medical equipment for people with disabilities to make their lives easier. So I am at the Copper Country Mall, and I've been 2.5 years now there, but I'm excited to have some updates since the last time I presented. So first of all, we've got to talk about the problem in healthcare, and I brought this up the last time, but it's good for us to understand what's going on in the healthcare industry. One of the big problems we have in the healthcare industry, and home care in particular, is that it's very much driven by insurance. In other words, what will insurance companies pay for? And that has changed drastically over the past few decades. In fact, I've been in the home care industry for over 30 years. It's just heartbreaking to see what has happened to the availability of very helpful, necessary medical equipment for people who get discharged from the hospital, which happens obviously a lot quicker nowadays than it used to, but also the challenges that presents to their families, caregivers, etc. So how do they get that equipment? Well, in a lot of cases, insurance companies just say, oh, we won't cover that. So we have to look for alternative ways to help people out. So especially for low-income people, that becomes a really big challenge for how to be able to afford something to help an elderly family member, someone who's been in a serious accident and is no longer able to take care of themselves. And even in the insurance industry, of course, there's the terminology they like to use is ADLs, activities of daily living. Think about it. You get out of bed in the morning, you go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, have breakfast, whatever you do. You almost don't even have to think about doing those things. Well, if you have a disability, all of a sudden those things become 10 times harder. So my job in this industry is to find ways to meet those needs so that people who have either some catastrophic injury or have become disabled over time can do those activities with less problems and less stress and make those things easier. Independence is really the key word, what we're looking for here. So I'm not going to go over the statistics again, but there are a lot of people with disabilities. So the solution, obviously, is being able to provide things like scooters and lift chairs, bathroom safety equipment, etc., that will make life easier for people who otherwise they might never get out of their homes, might never get out of their beds for that matter. And so my job is to make that easier, to find ways to make that easier for people. One of the ways I do that is collaboration with local organizations. Little Brothers Friends of the Elderly, now they have an equipment closet. I have donated equipment there so that people who can't afford equipment, they can go to Little Brothers and say, hey, I need a cane, a walker, a toilet seat, something, and they can get it actually for free. One of the ways that helps people is they know that there's a place they can go for some of those essentials, some of those things that they can get without having to put out any money for it. Otherwise, they can come to me, of course. So some of the things I offer, as you can see, scooters and power chairs, basic things like rollators and canes, hospital beds, patient lifts. So there are many different things that are available that I offer. Some of them on a rental basis, some of them for purchase, but one of the keys to it, in my opinion, the two things that I really emphasize in my business are affordability, for one thing, but also creative financing. In other words, discounts for certain groups of people. I give a discount for anybody who themselves are a family member, active military veterans, as well as first responders. I think it's very important to do as much as we can for people in those categories in our communities. So I support that very much. And the other way is through service. A large part of my business is service oriented. In other words, maintaining the equipment after the fact. Once you've purchased it or you rent it from me, I'm right there to take care of it no matter what the problem is, to make sure it's going to work and do what you need it to do when, on a daily basis. My old store at the mall, and I say old store because, as you'll see, I have upgraded, but was the smallest space available in the mall. You could call it a closet. It was once a yogurt shop. 575 square feet of almost can't turn around to do anything in my store. But I crammed my equipment in there, had my little service area, and for until just recently was working out of that, and it works, And the nice thing about the mall is a lot of extra space, so I had that's an advantage there. But I've also added some new product lines, and that's one thing I want to talk about today, is some of the new products I offer in addition to the mobility products. It's what we in the industry call accessibility. In other words, how do you get in and out of your home? Now that's something that Medicare doesn't cover. So that's a very difficult thing for a lot of people, is to get over that hurdle of how do I get out of the house? Because even with, say, the increased need for going to doctor's appointments and things of that nature, obviously that's not an activity of daily living inside the home. So getting out of the home to those things, that's another factor that we have to meet that demand. So one way I do that, this is a vertical lift. It's electric, so the person gets into it, presses a button, is raised up to the level they need to get into the home. Ramps for, say, getting up onto a deck or a porch to get into the front door. I do quite a few different varieties of that. And then a stair lift. And unfortunately, that picture didn't come out quite right, but there's a chair that rides up and down that rail. So the nice thing about that is someone that would otherwise not be able to get up those steps, they can just sit down with a little lever, they can just ride right up the stairs and then get off and go in. So that's a nice option as well. So these new products that I've added have made, kind of given me a way to offer an additional service to people who otherwise, again, would be stuck in their homes, and their family members often can't help them sufficiently to get out of the house. And I'm actually working with a client right now on that, because they need to get him to his doctor's appointments, and he has stairs. Both entrances to the home have stairs. So we're finding a solution there as well. My new location is also in the very same area of the mall it was where I was before. So from Center Court, if you know where that is in the mall, I simply have jumped over Center Court to what used to be the old jewelry store. And the nice thing about it is a lot more space. It's a nicer location. In fact, the gate that you can see partially down there, all I have to do is turn a key, and my gate goes up. I don't have to struggle with getting it open, so that's kind of a nice thing too. But I have a much nicer display, and I'm just going to walk over here just to kind of point out. I took a large jewelry counter that they had and cut it down to size, and now that's all my bathroom safety equipment. So now I have that all displayed nicely so that people can see it and see how it works, as well as the scooters and power chairs and everything else. So what's that enabled me to do, number one, is I don't have to keep moving the equipment just to have the space to work, but I also did a little renovation, and I now have a work area as well that I can use for doing the repairs and things like that. So it's enabling me to do a lot more and be visually better for people who come into the store. So how to contact me? I'm on Facebook. I have email. I have both a cell phone and an office phone, which right now my office phone is being forwarded to my cell phone for reasons I won't explain. But again, one of the things that separates me from others in the industry, and this is a much needed thing in this community, because the closest company that does even remotely what I do is Marquette. So you're either contacting someone from Marquette or from even further away to do what I do. So I think offering these things locally and being able also to service I have said for many, many years, in fact, one of the things that I actually put on my resume was that phrase, superior customer service, because I believe that the greatest asset to any business, and especially in the healthcare industry, is customer service. It is, how do I treat you as a customer? And I always look at this from a needs-based perspective. I want to approach each and every customer, whether they come to me or are referred to me by somebody else. I want to approach them as an individual who's going to have unique needs that I'm not going to know just because they say, I need a scooter. Because that scooter may be used for different purposes, what's their environment like, who is there to help them, etc. So those are all the things that I have to look at so that I can be sure that I get them the right scooter. So that I make sure that it's going to work for them long term, and that it's not just something that makes me a little bit of money and then hopefully you do good with it. You know, that's not my attitude. So I'm going to make sure that it's going to work for them. I actually do not want to sell a scooter or anything else to anybody if I think it's going to sit in the corner, or if I think that they're going to be afraid of it or unsure of how to use it, or just plain it's too much trouble for them, if it's too complicated. So I want everything to be simple, usable, that good old term, user-friendly, that we've become accustomed to. That is really what it's all about. So I'm going to provide equipment, as I showed earlier, that has the maximum value to meet the needs of those who have these disabilities. And going forward, my hope is, as I go through things like accreditation right now to be able to do Medicare, Medicaid, and other insurances, to not only be able to meet the needs that the insurance company takes care of, but then additional needs beyond that, where the insurance company falls short, and I can help make up that difference for them. Again, some of the other equipment that I offer will help to do that, because that says to the client that I'm not just interested in getting them the basic that insurance pays for and then they're on their own. I'm going to be there to help them through some of the other challenges they will have. For example, real quickly, Medicare does not cover bathroom equipment. I don't know why, because statistics show that not only do the majority of accidents happen in the home, but the majority of those accidents happen in the bathroom. So why doesn't Medicare pay for those things? It boggles my mind. But I have to think of that when I'm talking to someone, because when it comes down to it, I have to be able to offer both. What insurance does pay for and what they don't pay for, and how is that going to help them? So those are the issues that I deal with on a daily basis with my customers. And so that's pretty much it for me. You have any questions? Yes, sir.
Curious if you deal in like evacuation sleds for the disabled. Like, for instance, I'm president of the Chancellor Historical Organization, and we do have mobility challenged folks who come to our programming and so forth. And if we ever had a fire or something like that, I mean, it's sometimes a lot easier to get somebody onto an evacuation sled and slide them downstairs or whatever, as opposed to,
So there is a product I'm looking at. It's actually a chair on wheels, but it reclines back, and it actually has a sort of motorized assist for going up and down the stairs with an attendant. So that is something that I'm looking into. Anybody else? Yes, Stephen?
So you showed a picture of a chairlift that's for outside. I've never seen chairlifts for outside.
Yes, so and actually they can be used on indoor stairs, outdoor stairs, but it's on a rail, and it's a motorized unit with a chair that sits on top of that, and you just sit down and move a little lever, and it rides you right up that rail to the top. You can actually rotate the seat if necessary and get off of it. So the outdoor one, it's not one that I have actually ever installed, but it supposedly does handle inclement weather, including snow. The South Range has been looking into getting one like that, and what I recommended to them was that in addition to the fact that it's technically weatherproof, Obviously, someone's gonna have to clean it off on a regular basis. But that it would be wise to say, build some kind of box that the unit could be inside of to help protect it from the amount of snow that it would have to deal with. So that is a concern, but theoretically it does work even in those kind of conditions. Any others? Yes.
As far as target market, Doug, it sounds like you're looking to work with individuals, but it sounds like you have the skills to become maybe an accessibility consultant for local businesses. And with all of our aging infrastructure, there are increasing needs to bring those into alignment with accessible practices. I know that's an area tech has been looking at. Is that a segment of the market, like marketing to businesses and installing into commercial spaces? Is that
Definitely.
something you're considering?
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know if you have ideas specifically along those lines, but I'd love to talk to you about that, because that is I think that's an area where I think with some of those things that I have to offer, that definitely could be, they do make commercial versions of all of this equipment, so that's definitely a possibility.
I might just jump right in on that. So like I've got, like with Chancellor Heritage Center, we've got a threshold issue, and I'm sure it's a big issue with other buildings around here. You know, it's like, we gotta get people from, and we've got an ADA accessible, ramp coming up to our building, but we gotta get people from the threshold to the first floor, which is above grade. So, I'd be interested in talking to you if you've got options available to help with that.
Yes, and that brings up another point too, is a lot of people don't understand that the regulations, especially for new builds and commercial buildings, is very rigorous. So there are certain situations where I'm having people referred to me where I have to specifically apply very strict ADA regulations on, for example, ramps. And those ramps have to have certain features, they have to meet a certain slope, etc., in order to be acceptable. And that becomes a challenge in some places where there's not room for meeting these ADA regulations, and then I have to become that much more creative in order to meet that need. So that's a big concern, and definitely something that in the commercial realm is a big hurdle.
Right. Particularly with the older buildings that are, this is like, built in 1917.
Right.
So they weren't necessarily thinking ADA at that time.
Right. Well, and then some of your older buildings have had additions and things put onto them that make it even harder. So yeah, that's definitely something that takes a little more creativity to accomplish. But there definitely is some room for that. Any other questions before we go, Jason?
I just, along the same vein there, if you have to do any kinds of these installs, do you have to go through a building inspector for a ramp? Talking to Todd LaRue in Houghton County, or is it basically meeting the requirements for how the product is designed to meet ADA? So you have to follow those regulations. Is there local regulatory bodies that you have to go through for these larger installs that you're aware of?
So for most of the things that I do know, on a commercial end, if we were talking about for a township or the university or whatever, I think there would be a little more, I would have to look into that to see what for most things, the equipment itself is designed to meet the codes.
Sure.
So there's not, going into the commercial realm, I think is going to be the one area where that would have to be considered.
And thinking down that line, have you partnered with any contractors in the past if any kind of like a construction license or something is needed to do some of those installs? The vertical lift that you saw the picture there, I did it in conjunction with a contractor. Yeah, because they can run interference on some of those requirements.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. They would have a greater knowledge of that than I do. Yes.
Well, on top of that, then you could that would be another realm of ways to get in, because if you raise the awareness for these different builders and contractors in the community, this is part of our feedback right here, is that you build relationships with them to have them understand this is what I can bring to any kind of solution that you need to solve for your own customers. I can come in and sub with you to help bring those products to bear to serve the need of your client
Right.
and meet their
Right.
requirements. So.
Anything else? All right.
Great.
Very good. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time.